Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. There are several ways that the masters reach out to communicate with a person and to try to help them or teach them. You know, they might save you from an accident or send you a healing that is very miraculous. You know, there are, of course, miraculous signs that have been appearing all over the world, of course. So that's another way that they use to reach out to people to let us know that, you know, to give us hope and so forth, and send us a healing as well. The most common, according to Benjamin Creme, is through dreams. And, you know, all the dreams that we have in the course of our life, there might be one, maybe two, if we're lucky, that really stand out and really help us or impact us in a way that none of the other dreams that mean really nothing do, right? And then the other way is visions, where there might be somebody might be kind of awake, kind of not. They might have just woken up or have been awoken from sleep or something, and they see a light at the end of the hallway or in their closet or at the end of their bed or something like that. And the light, they might be communicating with this light some kind of way, you know, whether it's a message or some sort. Never fearful, never about the end of the world or anything, but it's always a positive one if it's from the masters, or one of hope or something like that. But so people, you know, a lot of times there might just be a light at the end of the tunnel, and somebody's own fear makes them think that they hear it say something fearful, but it's not coming from the masters, it's coming from their own fear. And then there are ways that like Maitreya has appeared to me as a familiar. You know, he can appear as a beggar or a person walking down the street or something like that. And that person has an impact on that person's life in a very, very extraordinary way. And it could be from one of the masters. And then the other way is they set up scenes where the masters themselves might not physically be in there, but they might, through, I guess, maybe opening the person's eyes and heart and mind to a point where they can see something. And it has an impact in their life in a way that they wouldn't have had any other way but with the help of a master. And they did it to help or teach the person at that time. And what happened to me was, back in the late 80s, I was 15, so I was just starting to drive, and I went to visit my father in St. Louis, Missouri for a few weeks. And at some point during my visit, my dad had to take a business trip to El Paso, Texas, and he was driving his truck down there. And so I rode down with him. And so I helped him drive and that kind of thing. That's what was so exciting about me driving down to El Paso. But it's a 2-day drive. I mean, it's a good, hard 2-day drive from St. Louis. And if you're not familiar with El Paso is at the very corner of Texas, right at the corner of Texas, Mexico, and New Mexico. But it's right on the river, the Rio Grande River, across the river from Ciudad Juarez, which is a city in Mexico. And when we get down there, I had never been to that part of Texas, so it was the first time I was actually in the desert in my life, you know, like that. And so it just, the whole environment seemed different. But I actually was kind of struck with how much I liked El Paso. But if you talk to most people, they don't really like El Paso. They're kind of turned off by the poverty or whatever. And there is a lot of poverty there. I mean, there are people begging on nearly every street corner. And most of them, of course, are Spanish because they're coming from Mexico and that kind of thing. But I remember just being struck by the disparity of wealth and poverty, you know, and it was the first time I had actually really been introduced to that, you know, type of disparity. And my father and I, after dinner one night, and it was in the summertime, but my father and I, after dinner one night, wanted to go see, I don't know if he wanted to see it or if he wanted to show it to me or something, but he wanted to show me the Rio Grande River. So we drove out of town a little ways, and we were probably about 10 miles out of the city maybe. So we were in the desert. I mean, there was nothing really around us on our end from what I remember, but I don't even remember getting there. I just remember this scene. And we park the truck and we get out. My dad kind of goes one way and I go another way. And I walk down to the Rio Grande River. And I remember seeing how thin and how shallow the river was. I remember thinking to myself at this point, I could just, it's almost like I could just walk across the river bed and my shoes would get wet. But if I lifted my jeans up or my pants up, they wouldn't get wet at all. I mean, it was maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet, maybe 6 inches. I can't remember exactly. It was really thin. You could see the stones and stuff. And the river itself was not much wider than a wide city street. I mean, it was really, really shallow and narrow at this point. And I remember thinking, I was like, wow, all these people from Mexico have to do is just walk right across the river into the United States, right? And then I'm looking at the other side of the shore in Mexico, and it's kind of sloped. It goes up maybe about 10, 15 feet. And then there's this shanty town right there with just nothing but lean-tos, a couple pieces of wood and some metal. I mean, that was it. And there was no running water that I could see. There was no paved streets. There were no landscaping. There was no electricity even. It was getting to maybe 7:30 or 8. Like I said, it was after dinner. So it was still light outside because it was summer, but it was starting to get, the sun was starting to kind of go down a little bit. And so I started to notice how it looked without, the village looked without any electricity, and I remember because I'd never seen that before in my entire life. There was always a street light that would come on when it would start to get kind of dark. And I remember turning around looking at El Paso, Texas, the city, and there were lights that I could see off in the distance and stuff. And so I was there for I don't know how long. And then this kid that appeared to be maybe 7 or 8, 9, maybe, I think. I don't know how old he was, but he was young. And I was like 15 at the time, so I wasn't that old. And I'm down at the edge of the riverbed, and he comes out of the lean-to and walks down that slope and stands at the other edge of the river. And I remember I didn't wave at him, I didn't smile, and we were just kind of there looking at each other. And then I remember thinking to myself, there's nothing behind him but poverty. There's no electricity, there's nothing. And then I kind of turn around me again, and, behind me again, and I see what he sees behind me is this beautiful city, El Paso, Texas, And the only thing that's separating us is this tiny, shallow river. And I remember thinking to myself, that could have been me over there if I was just born over there, right? And it could have been him over here. The situation could have been totally reversed had we been born in different areas, and how there's really nothing separating us, right? Just this, like I said, just this little tiny little creek, at this point. And I remember even thinking this about ideologies, and I was like, wow, the difference between a Muslim and a Christian is where you're born, and the difference between this extreme poverty and, I wasn't rich, but, I had a lot more than this kid did. And it made me feel wealthy at the time, like I almost had too much, is this little river. And it was the first time in my life that I had seen that kind of poverty where somebody has nothing, absolutely nothing. And I didn't feel guilty. I felt bad, but I didn't feel guilty, but I wanted to help in some way. And it really rocked my world in a lot of ways. And I don't know if Maitreya or one of the masters set up that scenario for me, but I suspect that they did. And it kind of started me on the path of why I'm doing these videos and why I'm so concerned about the disparities of wealth in the world and so forth. And as always, take action. Help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos. Have a great day.